Hey everybody, so I know I've been talking a lot about stuff about structure of reality, a lot of, I wouldn't say real-time commentary about events unfolding around mass shootings. A lot of this is very relevant to recovering from narcissistic abuse, because if you've well, obviously you have been involved with somebody who's disordered, you know what it means to have your reality changed. You know what it means to be gaslighted. It happens to all of us. You go and when what you've experienced is so unbelievable that people just don't believe it, like that's a really difficult, maddening experience to have. So I want to talk about how to talk to people, and how to move forward, how to sort of break through these barriers of consensus. See, with consensus reality, and let me give a good example, between the UK and America, right? In the UK, y'all drive on the left side of the road. In America, we drive on the right side of the road. Anybody who's in the UK knows how terrifying it is when you meet somebody and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm from the US. Hey, do you want to ride?" They're like, "No. Why don't you ride with me?" Right? That's an instant perception of a threat. Now, the American hasn't done anything, but we all know that Americans drive on the wrong side of the road in England. And the same is true over here. You hop in the car with someone from England, they're quite likely to drive on the wrong side of the road. Even though they have not done anything, they've made no threats, they haven't actually done it yet, but you immediately recognize that there's potential for harm, a potential threat, based on the fact that there's citizenship in a different consensus, and those differences come into direct conflict and cause direct threat. So that's a pretty clear-cut example of friction between two consensus realities, and it's such a friction and difference where it can be perceived as a threat. We run into this all the time, especially when you're looking to get out of a situation and people just don't take it seriously. Like that's the absolute opposite effect. When you're experiencing something that's abusive, something that's painful, something that is very difficult, and when you take it to other people, the opposite happens, where it sounds like innocuous, harmless, natural things that occur within their own consensus. They don't understand that it isn't. This is something that even today, I experienced this personally quite a bit day to day with my ADHD and Asperger's syndrome. For something as common as ADHD is, I would be hard-pressed to find a single person that has not heard of it. And they say, I'm so ADD, oh my God. They forget something, or they're having trouble, and they're like, I'm so ADD, squirrel. It's kind of humorous to people. It's humorous to me too, because there's no way that you can have ADHD and not have a sense of humor. If you can't have a sense of humor, then it's pretty terrible. So, but for as many people that know about it, which is pretty much the entire developed world, nobody really actually knows what it is. Like, so somebody's like, "Oh my God, I'm so ADHD." You're like, "Oh, you have ADHD. I've been looking for somebody that can explain it for me. Can you explain what ADHD is since you have it, because I've always heard the term thrown around, but I don't really know what it is or how it works, or what are the symptoms, what are the causes, they can't answer it, right? So whenever I tell people that, I actually do have ADHD and I do actually have these problems, I get a whole different reaction. But if I just say something like, I'm sorry, I spaced out, I forgot. And they're like, oh yeah, don't worry, everybody does it. Not really. Not like I do it. There's certain frustrations. Like I cannot do laundry. Like I literally do not have the ability. I can do the washer, I can do the dryer. The folding, I cannot do it. It's just I can do a number of things like goddamn, I'm an enterprise software architect and developer. I design multi-million-dollar data systems for large international oil corporations, and I can't fold a stack of laundry, right? And truth be told, I have the ability, I have the potential. It's not for lacking the abilities. If the thing is, for me to be able to fold an entire stack of laundry for the whole family, it requires incredible amounts of effort on my part and on somebody else's part, because there has to be environmental interventions for ADHD to redirect back to something to focus on, right? So there have to be interventionary steps from within the environment that redirect somebody with ADHD back to a specific task. If the environment does not possess those interventions, then the ADHD is free to roam wherever, right? So there's two types of consensus conflicts. The ones where a threat is perceived, a very real threat, even though no threat has been made, even though nothing has happened. And then there's the kind where a threat has been carried out, something harmful has happened, something harmful is going on, and people are just blind to it because it does not align with consensus. How do you bridge the gap? Well, it's not so straightforward, because in order to bridge the gap, we have to unsmartphoneify ourselves. See, smartphones have this, as of yet, smartphones have the power and capability to manipulate consensus and individual reality. As a matter of fact, the way that smartphones cause mental disorders and mental problems is because it can change your personal individual reality. Now has the power to shape its own consensus reality. So I'll say that again. Smartphones give you the ability to customize your own consensus reality to the liking of your individual reality. So you can be like, you know what? I don't like my neighbors. I don't need to know my neighbors. I have a phone, I have Amazon Prime. Yeah. You know what? I don't like that girl. I don't have to see her again. I got Tinder or Plenty of Fish or Match or whatever it is you're going to use, right? The world has become so small. We've become so seclusionary that chances are we can go out into the world on any given day and not see the same people twice in a row. The only times we see the same people is when we want to. The only time that we don't want to see the same people and see them is at work or at home when you're in a toxic relationship, right? Those are the only two places where we are forced to interact with the same people every day. At work and at home and in your relationship. And those are really the only two. Everything else is by choice. You say, well, I'm part of a soccer team. Well, yeah, but you chose to be on that team. If you can't play ball with the people on your team, you have the choice to change team. Or I don't know how it works. Maybe y'all can kick somebody off your team. It depends on whether it's a pro level or what. I don't know shit about sports, so don't let me talk like I know, because I don't. So, but that's what we've come to, is the only places where consensus reality is still real and structured the way it should be is in the workplace. Everywhere else, we now have it has changed. The rules have changed. Before we had smartphones, we had to rely on the community a lot more. Some of y'all remember back in the 80s, vegetable co-ops in the neighborhoods, right? Bulletin boards, like legit bulletin boards. Remember down by the neighborhood community club, the community centers, bulletin boards? Y'all remember those? Putting flyers up, and at the edge of the flyers there's a bunch of repeated tabs with a phone number, and the person had to print the flyers and then cut each individual flyer to make it easy to pull the tabs off. And so somebody pulls the piece of paper off, and then they promptly go running back home and pick up their phone at home and call. Or maybe the HOA clubhouse is open and they say, excuse me, can I borrow your phone? Right? Go back and watch old movies. You ever see in an old movie where somebody's in trouble or they need to get a hold of somebody, and what's going on? There's somebody else at the payphone, and they're like, come on, man, come on, I need the phone, I've got an emergency. It doesn't happen without the consensus of somebody else, right? And in some of these older movies, you can see where it's funny, where they run up to somebody who's on a payphone and they hang that person up and they're like, get lost, right? They hang up that person's phone call. Well, that person's kind of screwed, because now they're faced with conflict and they probably don't have all the change in their pocket to make another phone call, right? There used to be a much higher requirement for interpersonal interactions, and that was what really tied the room together in consensus realities. What smartphones have done is smartphones have broken all of the interpersonal bond requirements for society and have flipped the structure of reality on its head. Because just 10 years ago, there was you were pretty much, your individual reality was dependent upon the consensus in which you lived. So that, in other words, whatever the generalized population culture that you're in, hence the term culture shock. You get dropped into a new city or a new surroundings. You have to take it all in and adapt, right? You're the product of your environment. Now you can make your environment the product of you, the individual, and all you have to do is sit at home on your device, and you can find anybody who agrees with you. And so you can find everybody who agrees with you on any topic, and you don't have to step foot outside. And I'm gonna have to do a part 2 of this video. So thank you very much.